on the morning shift.
Anything could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
All right, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk. On the morning shift, I'm AJ Walsh, and yes, my effects switch works. Every morning there's one thing that happens that's, anyways, that you forget to do. There's about 100 different steps when I start the show every morning to do monotonously. It's like you'd want to come in and automate that whole process, but it's impossible right now the way that we have this show put together, which is a miracle in and of itself, which with all the technology that we have. 1, 2, 3, 4 laptops, 3 mixers, a desktop computer, an iPad, internet connection, 1, 2, 3, 4 different programs, software programs running. So anyways, lots of stuff. Anyways, you don't care about this stuff. You just want to have a good show, and so do I. So welcome to Sudbury News Talk on CKLU 96.7 FM on the radio, and also streaming at cklu.ca each and every weekday morning between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m. We're here to have a conversation about and around local issues and other broader issues that affect each and every one of us. So welcome to all you Sudburyans who tune in every single day. Also Sudburyans who are living around the world, who may have lived here at one time or born here, or just checking in to see how we're doing, or found the show for whatever reason because it was shared with you, someone who has similar interest than you do. So welcome all of you, no matter who you are, to the show. You are all welcome here, whether you share views that are commonly shared by everybody or you don't. It is okay, really. If there was a show that was really all-inclusive, this would be it. However, the politically all-inclusive would probably disagree with that, but I would love to have the politically all-inclusive come and talk to this show's all-inclusive, and let's see who's truly all-inclusive, because you are welcome here. And this show is going to be talking about some of that today. So that will be our deep dives. That's a little bit of a heads up there. And we're also streaming on cklu.ca. As we said, you can click on the Radio Player Canada app, stream our show, stream all the other great content on CKLU. Look at the schedule. You can see what shows are on, where and when on cklu.ca. You can also download that same Radio Player Canada app, take us with you, and listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. Also, we're streaming on youtube.com, youtube.com/Sudbury News, facebook.com/Sudbury News. We'd like to thank our Facebook and YouTube moderators for the job that they have to do. We're grateful for the platforms that allow us to broadcast. It's a great age and time we live in where we can actually broadcast a show like this. And with that, I just want to give some shout outs. Speaking of that, and thanking people for being on. David, good morning. Stay safe. Thanks for being with us. Monique, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Randy, thanks for being with us. Hope you're all having a great Wednesday, hump day here in this week. Vin, good morning. Morning, I guess you can say, to quote it directly. Denise, good morning. Everyone, thank you, Denise, for being with us. Belinda, good morning. People with terrific views. Oh, there you go. Everyone's view is worth something, and I think the discussion is very healthy. We do not have very many discussions these days. Good morning, Wade. Thanks for being on. Much appreciated. Taking time from your busy day to join us. Pass it on undercoating. Judy, good morning. Thanks for being with us as well. Going to have a great show today. I promise. I'm flying solo, so you're all in the co-anchor seat, so to speak, the the guest spot with your comments, and we appreciate that. So without further ado, we're going to be talking some sports right after our weather. Sudbury Cubs in action last night. Sudbury 5 will be in action tomorrow night, along with the Sudbury Cubs as well. Some Sudbury Wolves news. We had some awards being given out to the Sudbury Wolves. So that's coming ahead in sports. We have quite a few headlines to talk about today. If you check out our Facebook page, and the reason for the Facebook page is mainly for this show. So that way we have the stories from around the city, Greater Sudbury, to talk about, along with some deep dive material. And there's no end to the material to talk about. So along with the sports today, we have a lot of court-related things, legal things. A Sudbury woman was accused of murder back in 2020. She's going directly to jail, so there's that. There's also the jails getting a facelift as part of an initiative from the government's $500 million initiative to better our jails. We'll look at also some of the different policies that are coming through in our legal system that are getting less and less tough on certain people and tougher on other people. So we'll do a little deep dive into that. And that's speaking of the Sudbury clerk who is pretending to be a doctor. You'll be pretty astounded at what the verdict was with that, and that's going to lead into our deep dive today. Also, Sudbury downtown businesses are looking to ease the tensions between the city's vulnerable population and the city. So a lot of times, I know those that are joining us on the show quite often really have a lot to say about our vulnerable people in the city that struggle, that are experiencing homelessness or addiction, and how we're dealing with that in our city. And I'm sure it's not any different from any other city in our world, basically. And so these are common topics that we're talking about that could appeal to anyone chiming in. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be from Sudbury to take part in the show and to get something out of it. Good morning, Julia. I hope you had a great birthday on Monday, a milestone birthday. Thanks for being with us this morning. We're going to dive right into some weather. We'll be back with the sports and latest headlines and all your comments. So make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow on all our social media, but mainly comment on the show. I may not be able to get all your comments, read them out for the radio. However, I will do my best to share them on the screen and make sure to pay attention to the comment section, mainly on Facebook, because you'll see there's conversations going on there to get the most out of our discussions today. We'll be back with the weather. And before that, Denise, good morning from Espanola. Thank you. Yes, it's beautiful and sunny today in Espanola. And we'll talk about the weather right after this. Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. Currently it is 5 degrees in Sudbury. That's Celsius. That's plus. And I guess it feels like that too, because they're not saying it feels any different. Today's high is 16. The low will be 7. Sunny. Not too windy. And again, high of 16. UV index will be 7. Tonight, clear. Wind will be mild. And the low of 7, like I said, overnight. And then Thursday, high of 22 and sunny. Can you believe that? Mainly sunny, according to our long range. Mainly sunny, high of 22 degrees. Now, we thought we're only going to be getting about 20, but hey, why not add on a couple more degrees there and enjoy a nice warm day. And then Friday, sunny, 19. Saturday, mix of sun and cloud. Now, weather's always changing, right? Because yesterday we were talking about it being raining on Saturday, but it's going to be a mix of sun and cloud, according to this Environment Canada forecast. High of 19, mix of sun and cloud on Saturday. Then the rain is forecast to come in, 60% chance of showers on Sunday, high of 13, 40% chance of showers on Monday, and 30% on Tuesday of showers. And then Tuesday, possible chance of rain mixed with flurries. High of 8 there. So let's just hope that's not going to be the case. However, you never know. This is the way the satellite looked over Northern Ontario, mostly clear. As you can see over Sudbury, at least at 3:30 a.m., there was some cloud cover, but it looks like that's going to be rolling out, or it might already has been on its way out. So for those on the radio, that's why I describe what it looks like. But that's your Sudbury weather, brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca for all things Sudbury weather. Visit SudburyWeather.ca. It lands on our Sudbury.news website. And yeah, you can catch all the latest, greatest if your app isn't doing it for you, or just checking in on the show every morning, which I know some people do. They just check in for the weather segment and then they're off to work, which I appreciate too. Even if that's all we can do as a service to the community, I think at least that's kind of neat. All right, we'll be back with some sports right after this. All right, Sudbury Sports brought to you by Randy Pascal's. He's that Sudbury Sports guy, and his website is sudburysports.com. For all things Sudbury Sports, visit sudburysports.com. Now, the Five are in action, I believe. I already knew what it was. I do know what it is. I can get it right here. They're in action Thursday. There's just with the Cubs and the Five now playing. I'm just trying to get my dates, who's playing when and what. But they're in Windsor on Thursday. The tip-off is 7 p.m. to catch that game. But then when they're done that, game, they're going to be back in town for live games on the weekend. And they're going to be here for two back-to-back games, interleague play against L'Académie, Dalma, the basketball league. They're from Quebec. And so, again, they're not in the Basketball League of Canada. They're in the Basketball League. It's an American league. But they're going to be having back-to-back games, Saturday, 7 o'clock, Sunday, 2 p.m. And then they have all kinds of stuff going on. This weekend marks the first time that team visits Sudbury, and will also be the first time these two teams play each other. So Saturday is bilingual night, sponsored by Collège Boreal. Experience the game in both of Canada's official languages, plus Boreal will be on hand with great prizes and giveaways for lucky fans. Sunday is a sensory-friendly game. That's also important. I know I went to the last Wolves game here in Sudbury and took a little young fellow with us, and you can tell he had to put his earbuds in and play his video games just to kind of have one kind of sound, because it was very, very loud in there. So it's very important. Sensory-friendly games, so fans can expect a reduced audio level and reduced use of lights. A quiet room will also be provided for those who need it. And then the Sunday game marks the Five's third annual baby race. Now, that just sounds kind of really cool on its own. The fastest babies in Sudbury will be at center court during halftime to compete head-to-head. The quickest crawler will be crowned the fastest baby in Sudbury and will win a baby prize pack valued at $650, courtesy of USW Local 6500. USW Local 6500 will be on hand with great prizes, and 3 lucky fans will have a chance to shoot for $6,500 at halftime. Following every Sunday game, all fans are invited to meet the Five for a team autograph session. Kids 10 and under receive admission for only $10 all season long. You can get your tickets at Sudbury Arena box office or by visiting greatersudbury.ca/tickets. Okay. And just reading some of the comments, I got to make sure if there are certain comments that are applying to what we're talking about, try and get them in when we're talking about them. But some of them are going to be saved for later, obviously. So let's see here. Switching it up a bit, the Sudbury Cubs. I have to make a correction on my reporting yesterday, and I was on this kick of real news too, which makes it even funnier of a thing, because we had a hater, there's haters out there for everything. We had one saying that we weren't real news, and we only have right-wing slants on things and all this stuff. So that's what I was on a kick yesterday about, and is this real? We're just reporting real news. And then I gave a false score for the Sudbury Cubs in the Sioux. They actually won 5-2. They didn't lose. But if you can see on the screen, the way that it goes along the ticker on the top, Sioux and Greater Sudbury Cubs, Sioux and Greater Sudbury Cubs, and then it goes Greater Sudbury Cubs, Sioux, because they're playing in the Sioux. It switches it up on the ticker. But everything is 5-2, 5-2, 5-2. And I just looked at it briefly because I don't have all the time in the world to prepare because it's all volunteer. Got a half an hour to get everything set up. Anyways, I made a mistake yesterday and I said that the Sudbury Cubs lost, when in fact they had won. So instead of being down 3-0 in the series, they actually, came back and the series was at 2-1. And all we had to do last night was win, and we could have tied the series up. It wasn't so gloomy. However, we tied the game, good thing, but then we went into overtime and we lost. Score there, 4-3 for the Sioux over the Greater Sudbury Cubs. They're now down 3-1 in the series. They come back and play here in Sudbury at in the South End Thursday. So Thursday night, Cubs are playing. Thursday night, the Five are playing. Get your tickets. Get in and see the Sudbury Cubs. Root them on, because obviously that was a heartbreaker to lose. Because if they would have won last night in overtime, the series would be tied up at 2 instead of being down 3-1. Now we'll see what character this team actually has, being one of the top 10 teams in the Canadian in Canada. If they will be able to actually come back from that deficit. And then Sudbury Wolves had their awards. They announced the year-end award winners, as they do every year. So Samuel Rothschild, as the MVP, goes to David Goyette. Nolan Collins gets the Leadership Award. Nathan Villeneuve gets the Bud Burke Top Rookie Award. The Nate Krawchuk gets the Scholastic, let's just be real here, Scholastic Award. It goes to Nate Krawchuk. And a pretty darn good goalie on top of that. Ethan Larman gets the Joe Drager player. And Matthew Mania gets the Gord Ewan Most Improved Player. Best Defensive Player, Landon McCallum. Top Defenseman, Andre Anania. And the top plus-minus player, Andre Anania. David Goyette, also Bill Plant, top scorer. Most goals, obviously, goes to David Goyette. I don't know why they have those two. If you get the most goals in your top scorer, isn't that the same? But anyways, I'm good to go. Quentin Musty, the Pete Shields Most Assists Award, and Alex Ferron, Community Service Award, and Coach Adelic, the Jim Pappin Memorial Award. Hey, Jim Pappin, you have an award named after. That's really cool. So there you go. Those are the awards given to the Sudbury Wolves for a season well played, made the playoffs, first time since 2019. Looking forward to next year, where they should do some damage next year. And for that, you can make sure to get your season tickets for next year. Get them early. They're going to go fast. That's your Sudbury Sports, brought to you by. I just wanted to mention too, one other thing in Sudbury Sports. David Goyette signed with the Seattle Kraken, and he was a second-round pick in the NHL's draft in 2022. Signed a 3-year entry-level contract with them on Monday, on Julia's birthday. Signed with the Seattle Kraken, and he will join the AHL affiliate. Now that's sad news for Sudbury, if that in fact means he will not be back next year. What a powerhouse of a player. Sad news for Sudbury, great news for Seattle, fortunately. So we'll have to just see what happens there. Looks like we're going to be losing him. Anyways, I'll get the scoop on that from those who know the dealie. And so we'll be back. That's your Sudbury Sports, brought to you by Randy Pascal's sports website, SudburySports.com. We'll be back with news headlines, all your comments, and much, much more right after this. Okay, and we are, in fact, back. And a few comments coming through here. Get them up on the screen as well. So many comments coming in. Okay. May have to fish today. Okay, great. You should. Good morning, Brian. Brian Poulain joining us. I did get your message, Brian, just was not able to get back to you. We'll basically, like we usually do, work something out that makes sense. Good morning from McCarroll. Lynn, thank you for chiming in and letting us know where you're at. McCarroll, we're definitely expanding. We'll have a lot of people in Manitoulin Island, Espanola, Massey, McCarroll. Seems to be a great, wonderful group here. So I wonder when they're going to have transgender Pride Night. Oh, they've already had it. The Sudbury Wolves did anyways. I'm sure that the 5 more than likely will have it. And again, right? So all of these clubs, and that will be possibly part of our deep dive today. It depends. There's 2 ways we can go with that. But there's definitely been a political movement to involve political movements in sports. And that definitely one of them. And I'll explain what that means, hopefully a little bit later. Belinda, that's okay. Perfection is boring. Oh, thank you. Yes, when I made the mistake about the game yesterday, I can't believe I did that. But anyways, it happens. So Lynn, very understandable mistake. Thank you. Good morning, Tracy. Thanks for being on. Hope everyone enjoys the beautiful day. Yes, and we shall. Diane, good morning, everyone. Bon matin, for sure. Thanks for being with us, Diane. And Lynn also, not necessarily. Most goals. Oh, just goals. Most points. Goals and assists, correct. But I think it was the top scorer and most goals. So scorer probably is points, I guess. Not sure. Denise, I have cause. Well, sure, I share because we need news. Local uniting us, for sure. Yeah, thank you very much for that. That's the idea. We want to be. It's hard, right, to have honest news that can be all inclusive. Meaning, let's just talk about the truth. What's really going on? That's what news is supposed to be. Like, that's what reporting is supposed to do. You're supposed to ask the questions. You remember, I had a teacher who's the greatest teacher in the world. Anyone who has had him with me knows what I'm talking about. Had him for 2 grades, actually, 5 and 7, and taught us about reporting in grade 5 and 7. So we had newspapers from all over Northern Ontario, meaning Sudbury Star, Timmins, North Bay Nugget, and we might have had one other. And we would read some stories and we would talk about them in class, and he would talk to us about what's going on in our world and how reporting, and he would teach us about reporting, like who gets taught about that in 5th and 7th grade. And I'll never forget the 5 W's and H of good reporting. Who, what, when, why, where, how, all the questions to ask. And I just knew that that's the way you get to the bottom of things. Just keep asking questions like your 3-year-old. Why? And eventually you're going to dig your way down to what's going on, right? But somehow that has become offensive these days to certain people. If you ask why too much, or you question, or you then find out something and then you want to let everyone know what's going on, there's certain people out there that obviously it's like in your family, the older brother does something or the younger siblings see it and they go to tell their parents, and the older brother could assert some power on those younger siblings and say, you ain't telling no one about what just happened, right? And then they try to tell them and the older brother tries to shut them down. It's not that much different in our society. Those with the power, if they do something wrong, they don't like to be told that they're wrong. It just is not a good feeling, and they're in a powerful position. They're not used to people telling them these things. And news, by and large, was supposed to be that kind of unbiased thing that could do that historically and in our Western society. However, little by little, chip away at the stone, eventually, we've become a country that's mostly media government supported. Billions and billions of our tax dollars goes to pay for the news, which then results in what? Can you really be a watchdog to someone who's paying you? Kind of hard, It's kind of like your older brother gives you $100 and says, here's $100 if you don't say that you saw me stealing the cookies out of the cookie jar. It makes it even harder for that sibling. Say, Mom, I saw Jerry with his hand in the, he just gave me $100 as if I'm going to say something. So it just is what it is. That's what happens. Let's go. Tons of comments here. Getting harder and harder to discipline. Oh, sorry. To decipher truth. Thank you. Questions are considered racist. Correct. Yes. Agreed, Denise, for sure. CBC is government funded media. Oh, more than that. And thanks for chiming in. Let's see here. Where are you coming? So, Pat, thanks for being on. CBC is government funded, but we found out recently that through the pandemic and media in general is facing, financial hardships. So the government stepped in and made local media funds and journalist funds and fund. So a good chunk of our other media in Canada is also funded, but the CBC for sure, we know, and we've always known, is 100% government funded. And they want to do advertising on top of that. And they do some advertising. And that was crazy when they came out and said, we want to advertise too. It's like, what? You're going to advertise when you're getting all your funding from our tax dollars to begin with? Like, what are you even thinking? All the board of directors and CEO have resigned from the Trudeau Foundation. That's true. We shared that in our feed here today. If you look at our news feed, Sudbury News Facebook page, could this finally be the demise of Trudeau? It's great, hopeful thinking, but you know what? Just something tells me until an election and a fair election that can be a lot of checks and balances in place, I don't know. I don't really know. That's a hard question to answer. Is very, very shady world. That's true. It's getting more shady. Need to shine some light, but media is going to be more and more shut down, right? So Bill C-11 coming out. Talk about that a little bit today, whether that's our deep dive or our justice system or both. We'll see if we have time. Media is supposed to hold government accountable, correct? But that's just not the way that it is. Distractions come and go. I'm watching. They seem to slip along merely. They seem to skip along merrily. Thank you. That's my eyesight. Sorry. Apologize for that, Denise. Truth is intuitive. Correct. You got to use your gut and understand and listen. Go with your gut. Listen, study things, study it out. Your mind, your heart agree on something. Your gut kind of says, yeah, you both agree, then it makes sense. So, and Pierre Trudeau's daughter was on the board of the Trudeau Foundation. Okay, I do not doubt that. CSIS needs our support across Canada. Our halls must rise soon. Let's make sure I'm getting these comments correct. Yeah, that's correct. Director of Trudeau Foundation is the director of the MK Ultra CIA PSYOPs psychiatric patients experimented on Montreal. You got to be kidding me. You're kidding me. I know about that. Like we had MK Ultra in our psych wards in Montreal for years doing MK Ultra experiments. And this guy's on the board. He's the director. Whatever. Holy moly. What's going on here? good to have unbiased news source with a very biased point of view. Okay, there's Dave, my favorite guy. Thanks, Dave, for chiming in. Appreciate it. So a biased point of view. Interesting. So you obviously believe that, do you believe Trudeau is doing a great job and our country's in a better position since Justin Trudeau took over? So let's do a little report card then. Let's just ask ourselves how our downtowns are going, how are the violence, the inflation. Let's just kind of look at all the markers and ask ourselves, is Trudeau doing a great job? And that's what we're asking. So if you think he's doing a great job, then it's not a problem. You just chime in and keep us real. If we're biased, then give us other facts and whatever that if we're missing some, because definitely not meaning to miss out on the facts. Just want to talk about what's really going on in our community and what's really going on in our country and in our world. And I don't actually want to get too political about it. However, politics, they are there to govern. They're there to make policies. They're there to propose changes in legislation and laws, and they are in power, and they do affect our lives. And so we have to talk about politics, unfortunately. And so all we're trying to do is understand the world we're living in. But private funded news without biased viewpoint. So, oh yeah, David, you don't know. I just volunteer, right? I actually pay about $300 a month for all the expenses that go along with the show. I get up an hour earlier than I would normally every morning, and I go to bed about an hour later, studying and looking at the stories and getting things ready for the show. And I'm not paid by anybody. In fact, it's my own time. I volunteer here. I went to school as well, public relations, communications. I'm currently involved in a master's, an MBA program, all towards making sure that I have the credentials to be able to speak in an unbiased way and get to the truth, just like my grade 5 and 7 teacher was trying to teach us a long time ago with the 5 W's and H of good reporting, and not be swayed one way or the other than to try to get to the bottom of things. And that's why I welcome, if you have any information that's not, it seems like something's biased, you chime in like you're doing. But again, like just accusing me of being biased, tell me how. Say, because you said this. Like, that's the thing I have. There's an article about a group wanting to go to the CRTC because Tucker Carlson said a piece when a transgender person walked into a Christian school, shot 9 little girls dead, and 3 little girls, 9-year-old girls, and 3 adults dead. And in the news, nothing. In the news headlines, if that was a member of the Proud Boys, what would the headlines be? A Proud Boy walks into a school and shoots. And what if they were vulnerable or a less represented segment of our population, let's say a black school? How would the headlines read after that? What headlines did we find? So Tucker Carlson came out and said he did a piece on what's going on. Why aren't the media covering this? Why aren't they saying transgender, a woman transgendering or transing into a man, wanting to be a man, walks into a school and kills people? And that's when they were having their trans vengeance day on April the 1st in Washington, D.C. And basically putting it out there to have more trans people pick up guns because they're afraid of their lives, because there's all these hateful people around that want to kill them. That's the message that's coming out from certain factions of the trans community. So basically it comes out. So then someone went to the CRTC and said, Fox News needs to be banned in Canada because he's homophobic and he's inciting hate by reporting the news. He's wondering why the news is leaving it out. And he's saying this is what happened. There was a manifesto that this person had going into the school, basically saying why they supposedly hated Christians. And then he gave his take on maybe why Christians and trans people are at odds in the spectrum of things and how this could have led to that. But the transgender community in Canada took exception to that and want him silenced, wants him canceled, wants any opposing view to them canceled. And in what arena should we ever cancel someone from saying something? So if someone's got a wacko point of view, hey, I even think that's even better. You got a wacko point of view, come on, and everyone will see how wacko you are. So let them speak even more. People will say, that's wacko. It doesn't make any sense. But shutting them down and suppressing and canceling, and what does that remind you of? If you start doing that to one, then who's doing it too? What are they basing that on? And you yourself, Dave, wouldn't want to be silenced and canceled, I'm sure. And that's what's going to happen later. Sure, you say what you want now, but next it's going to be you. It's like the snake eating its tail. Eventually it's just going to eat itself up to nothing. So we would hope that you'd want to encourage freedom of speech, and so that way your point of view could come out just as much as anybody else's. And that's where we're at here. So thanks for your comment, though. I really appreciate that. See here, comments coming in. Yeah, so this person was the director. That is insane. And yeah, you can, Dave, if you go on your computer and you Google the information you're seeing in the comments of who is the director of the Trudeau Foundation, it's not political. So again, by saying this, you're thinking, oh, here's right-wing people trying to find fault with Trudeau because they don't like Trudeau and they're trying to get him out. No, that's not it. Either it's true or it's not. Either this guy has that background and he was on Trudeau's board, or he wasn't. Like, it's what? You can't just look? You can't go and do the research? It's easy to do. The computer right now, even though a lot of it is censored, you can still find out this information. If you want to, or if you don't have to. That's great. We still live in that country where we don't have to do anything. It's kind of free still. 30%. Okay. Trudeau's destroying Canada. He's an idiot. Okay, so a lot of just personal views of Hitler. I did not mean to say that. Of Justin Trudeau. I don't even know where that came from, to tell you the truth. No, and don't just call people Hitler for no reason. I wasn't even thinking anything to do with that whatsoever. But a lot of people a lot of people do hate Hitler, obviously, but a lot of people hating on Justin Trudeau. And I'm not even making a comparison there, and I don't even honestly believe there's a comparison there. It's fine. So I'm just going through your comments now because there's so many of them here. Facts are hard to deal with. Yeah, correct. Definitely. Thank you so much with that. They are, right? We have a hard time, facing things that we don't like to face. And mainstream media, yeah, sorry. But mainstream media did cover the transgender. Oh, it did? Okay. Interesting. So you can share that. You just go to sudburynews@gmail.com and share which mainstream news covered it, David, and I'll cover it on the show. And we'll see how well they covered it, because that's what we do. We take stories, see how well they covered it. Did they leave anything out? Was there bias in it? And so share it with me. Sudbury News, SUDBURYNEWS @gmail.com. And continue to do that too. When you find anything that you think is being slanted on this show in any way, shape, or form that's bias, and you have a different point of view and you want to share, that's what people do. They hear something on the show and it sparks them. They go, hey, I think you should look at this, or I think you should look at that. And it happens all the time. And I appreciate that. It gives content to talk about on the show. So thank you. If you found that, I'd appreciate it. Very little, if anything, was covered. And that's all I do is look at the news all day long. And I wish I didn't have to. I did not see anything, especially local news, on any of our Sudbury.com. If you can find Sudbury.com, Sudbury Star, CTV, Northern Ontario, anything, CBC, Sudbury, how they covered it, I really appreciate that, because that's how people consume news here, right? Because there's national and international news on those feeds. And please, if you can find those, I'd appreciate it, because I never saw anything myself there. You might have to dig and find, Microsoft MSN, which is Microsoft, right? MSN, Microsoft, MSNBC, Microsoft. Bill Gates owns a news organization, and so does the dude from Amazon. He owns the Washington Post, is it? So a lot of these guys are into news organizations. They own, and Elon Musk, right? Like you would know that he owns Twitter. So a lot of these people, very affluent people, owning media now, and kind of I'm sure that's, if you think that's unbiased, having someone with very strong political views owning media, huge media outlets, it's very likely you're going to get bias in the news. It just is. You can argue that till the cows come home, but it just is. Okay. Lots of, Tennessee shooter was a man transitioning into a woman. I thought it was the opposite. I thought it was a woman transitioning into a man. I could be wrong on that. I thought for sure I knew, but, okay. Thanks, Lynn. Appreciate that. And again, right? That's what these comments are for. It's a conversation around the news that we're seeing, the issues that we're facing each and every day. Okay, and I apologize for not saying all of the comments on here, but Brian is saying Communist Canada is coming, and there's no stopping it. And that is true. I believe so. I believe that is the political system that we're moving toward, and you just see it all around us if you're paying attention to what's going on. A lot of people like communism. I'm not a fan myself. I'm just not. But a lot of people do like being told what to do. They like it being very clear. Don't give me the freedom to think for myself or choose. I'll never forget a friend of mine teaching at Cambrian said in class, in Canada, we're free to do this, that, and the other. And there was an international student in there from China, and he heard him say under his breath, sometimes you can have too much freedom. And that's what this person definitely believed. And can we even argue that to some degree? Isn't that what our society is facing? Like, we need to shut certain people down because there's too much freedom. You can't allow everyone to say what their points of view are, because some people are going to offend other people. And we're not just going to make laws to govern them. We're just going to try and tell people what they can say or what they can't say, because it's going to be offensive. If you have too much freedom, it means you can commit crimes. So we don't want people to commit crimes. We want to stop them before they even do. So communism is a really great way to police people into preventing them from even committing a crime. Freedom opens it up to give you the choice to commit a crime and then prosecutes you or charges you after it, which was what the show was supposed to be about. Anyways, but we never even got to the headlines yet. This is crazy. Okay, going to have to really watch here. So you don't call people Hitler after you just did nothing by there. Now, I hope, Dave, I just explained what happened. I don't even know where that came from. I honestly didn't mean to do that. And I would publicly apologize, which I'm doing now, if that offended you or anyone else. I did not mean to do that. I honestly don't know where that came from. Yeah, so tons of comments. This is going to be something, if I ever do start getting paid, David, that is the plan at some point, to be able to afford to have an even better show where we can show some of our principles that we have, that we really want to be as unbiased as possible. But we would need time and money and resources to be able to reach that goal even better. So that way, someone like myself, just coming off the cuff and just something came out of my head as I'm talking, because I didn't write the show ahead of time, and I could be more prepared. So those times things don't happen, but I'm not paid. I'm a volunteer doing this just because I'm passionate about it. And maybe one day we'll do that. But look at this. It kind of goes right into what we're talking about here. Sudbury clerk pretending to be a doctor examined female patients. Can you believe that? And what would you think a person like this would get for doing something like that. You know, you imagine you go to the doctor and they say, come on in, take off your clothes. We're going to examine you. And it turns out that's not even the doctor. It was just a clerk. So he was charged with sexual assault, all kinds of stuff. Let's just see here. So what happened was, on May 9th, a female teen visited the clinic complaining of a sinus infection, and she was put into a patient room. Singh, who is the person's last name, then took the teen's blood pressure, told her to lie down on the table in a room, began pressing on her abdomen, and then worked his way down her body. Then May 13th, the teen's mother visited the clinic complaining of stomach pains. She was put in the patient room by the same person, told to lie down on the table, remove her shirt, and he pressed on her torso. And then the mother came back again on May 24th, and she was put into the patient room, told to lie down by Singh, and he pressed down on her torso. Singh then put his hands on her waist, pressed down. Both the teen and the mother thought Singh was a doctor when he examined them. And the Crown is saying this is a serious offense, the extent of which was a breach of authority. And he has to accept a long period of supervision. And so he has guess what he got for this? A 1-year conditional sentence. And he'll have the opportunity to get rehabilitated. So his sentencing came through via Zoom, Southern Ontario. He came in 2019 on a student visa to Sudbury. And they're worried that he might face immigration issues as a result of his convictions. And he lost his job at the clinic because of the charges. And it's a guilty plea and an indication of remorse, they're saying, because he pled guilty and he didn't go to trial. It is an indication of remorse, so we can't really throw the book at him. And they dropped the heavier charges and basically gave him a much smaller charge, which is at the beginning of the story. It's just the story is broken up into a few here. So 3 charges: sexual assault, 1 charge of sexual exploitation. He pleaded guilty to 2 counts of lesser charge of assault. So they took out the sexual and just put assault instead. So he accepted a joint sentencing from the Crown, conditional sentence followed by 1 year of probation. So basically, didn't really receive much on that charge. You would think someone doing something like that would really get it. Now, guess what his job is now? So Douglas says, what a joke. And Dexter says, he now works in security? Really? Yeah, he's a security guard now. So someone like that, who has the ability. Anyways, I encourage everyone to go and read this story and see if you have it has the same effect on you that it has on me. Like what's going on in our justice system, that just as long as someone has the ability to be rehabilitated and they've done certain crimes, they are just given light sentences. Says you didn't have a criminal record before that. Well, he was only in Canada for so long. How could he have a criminal record here? Never had time to get one. And so for that, and it's out of his character. He had 12 letters saying this was out of his character to do something like that. And so, he just had a moment of temptation on 3 occasions, 3 separate occasions. Wasn't in his character. So yeah, we have a lot of problems with our justice system going on. And Harrison Faulkner actually talks about that. So let's just see if we have time. I don't want to not have this. So of what's going on. And yes, David, sorry, it's talking about Trudeau's policies are leading to things like this. And so you'll just have to cringe and listen, I guess, to somebody criticizing the Prime Minister, because that's what I think journalists should be doing. But yeah, here you go.
Canada. What is really going on here? Why have Canada's streets under Justin Trudeau's leadership descended into unlivable chaos? Well, back in 2018, the Justin Trudeau government passed Bill C-75, an act explicitly designed to get accused criminals back onto the street as soon as possible. Don't believe me? This is how the Library of Parliament summarizes the legislation. Modernize bail practices and procedures by providing that any bail decision must give primary consideration to releasing the accused at the earliest reasonable opportunity and on the least onerous conditions possible, and by requiring special consideration to the circumstances of accused persons who are Indigenous and members of vulnerable populations. Primary consideration to releasing the accused at the earliest possible time. Not primary consideration to you, or me, or Paul Stanley Schmidt, or Gabriel Magalhaes. Not to them, but to the accused. The Trudeau government's assault on the justice system in this country didn't just stop at Bill C-75. In 2021, not being satisfied with getting criminals out on the street as soon as possible, the federal government passed Bill C-5. And let me just explain to you about what Bill C-5 is really all about. According to the text of the legislation, Bill C-5 would shrink mandatory minimum sentencing to address the over-incarceration rate of Indigenous peoples as well as Black and marginalized Canadians for such crimes as using a firearm or imitation firearm in the commission of an offense, possession of a firearm or weapon knowing its possession is unauthorized, possession of prohibited or restricted firearm with ammunition, possession of a weapon obtained by commission of offense, weapons trafficking, possession for purpose of weapons trafficking, importing or exporting knowing it is an unauthorized, discharging a firearm with intent, discharging a firearm recklessly, or robbery with a firearm and extortion with a firearm. That's right, so the Trudeau government wanted to make sure that criminals who were sentenced for crimes like that are brought out back onto the street as soon as possible, while also banning legal handguns and hunting rifles from those legal gun owners. Now, why is Justin Trudeau so committed to catch and release policies like this? Why does he want accused to be brought back onto the streets as soon as possible? Well, the government doesn't hide their reasoning. They state it plainly on the government website. The government recognizes that there is systemic racism in Canada's criminal justice system. We have heard Canadians, the courts and criminal justice experts, and seen evidence of the disproportionate representation of Indigenous peoples as well as Black Canadians and members of marginalized communities, both as offenders and as victims. That's right, it's because the justice system is systemically racist. That's why an Ontario court judge granted release to Jordan O'Brien Tobin, a homeless man, so that he can go and kill 16-year-old Gabriel Magalhaes. Think about that. The government of Canada passed legislation with the express purpose of getting the accused back on the street as soon as possible because there were too many Black and Indigenous people being accused of crimes. How did that help the 11 slain victims of Miles Sanderson in the James Smith Cree Nation in Saskatchewan? According to the BBC, parole documents show Miles Sanderson had a decades-long criminal record, including 59 criminal convictions since he was 18, including assault, threats, and robbery. The files also indicate his childhood was marred by domestic violence and parental substance abuse. The parole board in February said that he would not present an undue risk and that his release would, quote, contribute to the protection of society by facilitating his rehabilitation. Well, Sanderson was released, and then he picked up a knife and went on a rampage killing 11 people with his brother. But the Liberal government, they would never admit that Bill C-75 and C-5 have anything to do with violent repeat criminal offenders continuing to take the lives of innocent Canadians. The former mayor of Vancouver, Kennedy Stewart, has gone on record repeatedly saying the same 40 people in Vancouver are responsible for 6,300 violent crimes. But no, in order to address systemic racism in Canada, the Justin Trudeau government needs to make sure that those accused of violent crime are put back onto the street as soon as possible. Primary concern is given to the accused, not the victims. While at the same time, the federal government is going to make sure that you can't buy a handgun, you can't buy a hunting rifle. They need to seize those hunting rifles because that's really what's going on here. They also need to make sure that in Vancouver, Homeless people are allowed to carry meth, crack, and fentanyl in front of the cops. How's that working for you guys out west? Oh, and by the way, none of it's going to get any better in Toronto. Thanks to the federal government led by Justin Trudeau granting an exemption to British Columbia to allow British Columbians to carry illegal drugs in front of the police. The city of Toronto now wants to take that one step further. Eileen Davila, the chief public health officer of Toronto, submitted a proposal to the federal government to make sure that in Toronto, not only will you be allowed to carry any amount of a controlled substance, unlike in British Columbia where you're only allowed to carry 2.5 grams, in Toronto, they want to make sure that you're allowed to carry any amount of hard drugs. And go even further. They want to make sure that anyone in Toronto, including children, including youth, are allowed to carry any amount of hard drugs. Are any of you getting demoralized about this yet? I know I am. We'll be handing out the Ratio of the Week award to a deserving winner next week, but this is not the episode to do that. It's time that we take a pause for a moment of genuine reflection and ask ourselves if this is the kind of country we want our children and our grandchildren to inherit. Where has our sense of civic duty gone in this country? Are you going to be the man that sips his coffee as Paul Schmidt dies in front of you? Are you going to be the effeminate loser that takes a selfie as a fellow countryman dies in his own pool of blood?
Yeah, so some harsh things there, but I hope for those that, there was a comment there saying, oh, this is real news. Yeah, right, kind of thing. Again, some haters, and I appreciate that because you're probably not used to hearing people actually talk about stories. They're usually just, they're talking heads and they read something that's given to them. They don't even know themselves what they're reading. They probably, at the end of the day, someone asks them, what's going on? They're like, I don't know, I was just reading today. I didn't even pay attention. So that's the news you're getting. And so I know that you have a hard time when you hear someone actually trying to unpack something and actually give real facts, not just what you're used to hearing. You can take everything you heard this particular person say, look into it on your own. It's your country. It's your freedom to do that or not. And you're free to watch the show, listen to it or not, which is great. And so I appreciate those who take the time with us each and every day to try and understand the world we live in. Check out our Facebook page at Sudbury News on Facebook, facebook.com/Sudbury News. YouTube as well. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and all that on all of our social medias. Get the word out there so we can have a better conversation. And yes, our goal is to have the most unbiased talk about our country and our situation. And these are, I think, things that if you feel are important, if you just want to let these things happen and not talk about them, and that's unbiased to you, then you just have to tune into CBC, CTV, Sudbury.com, those kinds of things, and just not really ask any more questions deeper than that, and just consume it. And don't ask what's in this ingredient. What are the ingredients in this that I'm eating? You don't have to ask. You just eat it, and you'll be fine. I think, maybe, or not. But that's your decision. And so if you want to kind of ask some questions and unpack some things, this is the place to be each and every weekday morning between 7:30 and 8:30. Sudbury News. So that's all the time we have today. Thanks for all your comments and being with us. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow on CKLU 96.7 FM, Facebook, and YouTube. Thanks for being with us. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily. Have a great one, everyone. Ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.